Hello and welcome everyone to another video. Today we are talking about none other than my 2007 Toyota Tacoma, which unfortunately has not shown up on the channel but one time, which I really regret, honestly, because this thing has been such a big part of my life over the last few years, and I'm really kind of regretting not sharing more of it with you guys. I've been on a lot of adventures in this thing. I've done a lot to it. It has just been a big part of my life, and you know, unfortunately, with work and all that sort of stuff, YouTube has just taken a back seat, and I apologize for that, guys. But today we are going to talk a little bit about this truck and what I've done to it and where I've been with it. So let's jump into it. So if you saw my review of this thing, then you know that it is a 2007 Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road. Basically, that just means that it is a 4x4 V6 with a locking differential and beefed up suspension. And I really haven't done much to change it from the factory setup, although the previous owner did install Bilstein 5112s. I believe that that's the code. But anyway, it offers a slight lift to the truck, and maybe they perform a little bit better off-road. Regardless, that's all that's been done to this truck mechanically. So otherwise, it's 100% factory, which is what I wanted. I wanted to buy a affordable pickup truck that was gonna perform well off-road to use as basically just a way to introduce myself to off-roading, because until I bought this thing, I really hadn't done all that much of it. I knew that I enjoyed it because I had rented a Jeep in Colorado previously, and I'd been to the mountains with some of my friends a couple of times, but for the most part, this was my first real introduction to off-roading. So I wanted to buy a truck that was just gonna perform well as it was, that I didn't need to do a whole bunch of stuff to. So this is what I landed on. Now, some backstory. I bought this truck from a friend of mine, so the truck itself already was sort of fairly affordable for me at the time. And I would say constitutes itself as a budget build in and of itself. Or really just adds to the fact that this was a budget Overland build. Again, all the parts and everything that I added to this truck, I tried to go as cheap as I could, but at the same time buy, you know, relatively good quality stuff. You know, I didn't want to buy anything that was just going to break the second that I started using it. But again, I hadn't done this before, so I was trying to buy parts that were not going to break my bank if I decided that I didn't like doing this. But needless to say, I took the truck out on a big trip one time, and I was hooked, and I've been hooked ever since. It is definitely like my favorite thing to do now. So that said, let's actually jump into the modifications that I've made. We'll start right here at the front of the truck with the kind of stealth bumper that I got from Victory 4x4. I believe it's called the Blitz. Basically, it retains the factory front bumper. You have to do some trimming in the middle, but for the most part, it retains the factory front bumper, which was a big thing for me. I kind of wanted to just get something that was subtle. I didn't want to go crazy with a giant steel bumper to begin with. And I feel like this kind of was a nice in-between. So it's got a winch plate, which was one of the biggest things. I wanted, because I was traveling alone and doing this stuff alone, I wanted to make sure that I had a winch. The winch that I decided to go with was a Schmitty-built 9500, just steel cable, so it's a big heavy thing. I've never had to use it, so it's just really for peace of mind traveling alone. I feel like it's a nice thing to have. Although I've never had to use it, so take that as you will. Moving on from that, though, of course, the bumper itself has steel tubing so that I could mount some extra lights. I went with some KC spots, and they've been awesome. They're basically an extra set of high beam headlights, which has been fantastic. And then in the bumper itself, I've got an LED light bar, which made an awesome difference. I believe the light bar itself came from Cali raised LED. And then to go along with the lighting, I guess we'll go ahead and move on, has been the Cali raised LED ditch lights, and they are phenomenal. Of all the lighting I've added, those are my favorites. They give you an awesome 180-degree field of view. I feel like they've made the biggest difference for me overall. They give you that 180 field of view. You can see really well out of your peripherals, but they also shine light pretty far out in front of you as well, and they're a nice complement to the light bar in the bumper and the KCs. I feel like these three lights together have been an awesome, they all complement each other really well, especially because the headlights on my second gen are pretty poor. Speaking of the headlights, they are aftermarket headlights. I wanted to get some headlights with some black housing to match the Pro style grille. I love this grille, it looks fantastic. But I wanted to get some headlights that kind of match it, tie it all together, the black up front rather than chrome. That's just personal preference. Although I will say the factory headlights did perform better, so I may have kind of shot myself in the foot there. But we'll go ahead and skip from there to probably the most important part of an overland build, and that is the bed rack and the rooftop tent. You're not really overlanding unless you've got a rooftop tent, right? We'll start with the bed rack. The bed rack is from Cali Raised LED. It is what they call the bed bars. Of course, this is sort of a mid-height bed rack. The bed bars come in two separate options where they're literally just straight across bars, or you can get them bent as a mid-height rack. And they do come with the MOLLE panels when you order this specific setup. And that was a big point for me because I wanted to be able to add those traction boards to the side. The traction boards are honestly just Amazon boards. I decided to go that route to begin with because honestly, they're affordable. Something like MaxTrax are much more expensive. Granted, MaxTrax definitely have the quality that these lack. But again, it's just one of those things where it's nice to have them as peace of mind. You know, if something does happen or if you need to help somebody else out, it's nice to have those there and to be prepared. You know, I'd rather have them and not use them than vice versa, especially since the truck's just carrying them around. On the opposite side of the rack, I am carrying a Rotopac's 2-gallon gas tank. That is somewhere that I didn't want to cheap out. I decided to get Rotopac's because, for one, I love the mounting system. It's super convenient. I feel like just having a nice gas tank that's easily accessible is kind of the way to go when you're out in the wilderness by yourself. You want to rely on it. You want to know that it's going to be there. And I mean, honestly, it's lived its whole life mounted on the side of my truck. It's held up very well, has never failed, hasn't faded, which is a big thing. The plastic's still in great shape. So I honestly would recommend going the Rotopac's route if you need a spare gas can. Plus, again, the mounting system is awesome and super convenient. I don't think that you can beat it, to be honest. Now, of course, on top of the rack is my rooftop tent, which I will shoot a separate review of in the future. I feel like it is enough. I feel like there's enough to talk about there that it's worth shooting its own video for. But I will say that it is the original Schmitty-built Overlander Gen 1 fabric tent. So really was just the most affordable option at the time that was still quality. And I will say it is quality. I've had it for 3 years. I use it very regularly. It has held up extremely well, and it's also very comfortable. The only downside to these fabric tents is a windy day. They do tend to flap around, but of course you're going to get that with your ground tents as well. So is it really a loss there? I wouldn't say so. It sets up pretty fast. Teardown is a little slower, I would say, than setting up, at least for me. There's a lot of kind of packing away that you have to do. But again, I still think that it's quicker and I think it's more convenient than rocking a ground tent. Arguably, I would say that the most important addition have been the tires. BFG KO2s have performed fantastic. They're quiet on the road. They perform very well off the road. And I really don't have any complaints about them. I have C-rated tires. I believe they're 265/70 17s. Of course, the 17-inch wheels are from the 4Runner. I think that the style looks fantastic on the second gen. It works really well with the scheme that I've got going on in this truck. Honestly, they were one of the first things that I added because I just absolutely love the way that these wheels look. And again, they look really nice on this particular truck. So that said, I think the tires are really probably the most important addition that you can make, especially when you're going out into the woods all by yourself. Having a nice set of all-terrain tires that are going to get you through most sticky situations is a big deal. You don't want to go out into the woods on highway tires and get yourself stuck all by yourself. Be smart, be prepared. Get yourself a nice set of all-terrain tires before you go crazy. Now, lastly are just some of the kind of minor additions that I've made. Kind of starting with the truck bed itself. I did have a nice big bed mat that held everything in place very well. Nothing shifted around when I had that. It was the factory bed mat. The Toyota bed mats are awesome. They have a nice weight. They don't move around. They don't flap around. And then of course, above that is the cargo net, which also is directly from Toyota. Fits the truck really nicely, uses the factory tie downs, and I absolutely love it. And I really don't have any complaints. I mean, it's pretty affordable up front, and it's held up to the test of time pretty well. Within the bed, I usually carry a couple of boxes. One that carries some recovery gear and spare parts. I feel like because I've got a 17-year-old truck, stuff it could go wrong, so I want to be prepared for it. I carry a few things like tie rods and ball joints and small things that, you know, if you're in the thick of it and something busts, you know, I want to be able to fix it. Of course, to go with that, I've got tools that I carry in the cab of the truck. I feel like that's just kind of a necessity. You get out there all by yourself and something breaks, you need to be able to fix it. Otherwise, what's in my bed is a cooler, just a standard cooler that you got to fill up with ice whenever you go to the gas station. I've got a box that carries all my cooking and toiletries. And then I think the one other addition is the trash bag on the back of the truck. The trash bag is from a Canadian company called Adventure Trail Gear, and it is a nice piece of kit. I was running a Trasharoo bag before. I think it lasted 6 months before it was dried up and disintegrating and falling apart. So I decided to go ahead and splurge on something a little nicer. And really, it's still very affordable, but the quality is significantly better and it has held up much better over time. And it is also designed for the tailgate of a pickup truck, which was a big thing for me because the Trasharoo really didn't fit properly. So honestly, it was kind of inconvenient to use in the first place. Whereas it's designed for its purpose and it serves its purpose well. I believe that wraps it up. Of course, the truck's been across the country a couple of times, out to places like Colorado and Utah. I've never gone all the way to the West Coast, but that's a goal of mine in the future. Unfortunately, this truck will not be accompanying me for that trip because it is being sold soon to make way for the next addition to the garage. Yeah, I know, saying goodbye to another one. Just said bye to the Mustang, now I'm saying bye to this. Honestly, this one's gonna be a hard one to say goodbye to though, because it has really, I've done 5 or 6 trips across the country with this thing already, and and countless camping trips in between. So it's really been a big part of my life over the last few years, and it's gonna be hard to say goodbye to it. But we'll do another video, you know, sort of talking about some of the adventures that I've been on with this thing. But in the meantime, I think that kind of covers everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign off, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. As always, take it easy.